I'd like to thank you first of all coming here, making the time, and I hope this will be a useful presentation. We made sure that it will be short, concise, and as boring as possible. So I'll hope you'll enjoy it. I would like to start with a question, and feel free to share your experiences. Have you been advised by anybody regarding your wills in Qatar, or what you have heard about wills in Qatar? Why do you need a will in Qatar? Anybody would please.
They need to be Sharia compliant. That's one of the things.
Okay.
I've heard that they have to be written in Arabic,
Okay.
even if they're from our home country.
Okay. Who needs a will is anybody who lives in the country. As long as they are subject to the jurisdiction of Qatar. It's not a requirement by law, you don't have to have it, but if you want, you can have it. Now, most of us all have bank accounts, or all of us actually. We own cars, and we have personal effects, cash, jewelry, whatever property that you have in your house. And let me stop there for a minute, and I'll give you a short story that actually happened and we dealt with, and it's regarding to cars. An employee passed away of one of the local companies, and he owned a car. And the family wanted to bury him back home. They weren't able to basically move the body out of Qatar because he had a car. And the traffic department asked the family to sell the car. Now, he's dead, he owns the car, and they are asked to sell the car. And his daughter was alive, and she wasn't able to sell the car because the laws does not allow somebody other than the owner to do it. And what happened is they've been asked to go back home, get a court decision that they are the legal heirs, and then come back to Qatar, enforce it through Qatar courts, and then sell the car, and they can take the body home. Now, under the laws of Qatar, we will look at two different parts. I can see some Qataris around here, and probably some Muslims. But when we make a distinction between locals and non-locals, it will include the Muslims who are not Qataris. Now, under our laws, for a local or Qatari, the law assumes that he's a Muslim. So it will be based on Sharia law, Sharia principles. And the way it's divided under Sharia principle, you are not allowed to devise more than 1/3 of your wealth, or write a will that will exceed more than 1/3 of your wealth, because it's already pre-decided and pre-allocated through the Sharia principles. Now, the way they will do it is that they will pay the debt, they will cover all expenses, and then whatever is left will be devised between the legal heirs, and then whatever is left, if 1/3 was left, that will be devised as per the will. Now, the big question is for non-locals. What do you think? Who would have an idea? What happens in a non-local? Nobody would want to take a guess? Okay, it's sort of close to that. Well, there are two main things. If a non-local pass away, there are issues of guardianship if he has kids in the country, and issues around inheritance. Now, the laws of the country does not impose Sharia principle on non-locals, even if they are Muslims. The laws of your home country, or to be specific, the nationality that you hold will apply regarding guardianship or inheritance. So you don't have to worry about Islamic principles applying to you. Now, this is a graph that we've done, it shows you the differences when somebody passes away. If you see, it's based on nationality between Qataris and non-Qataris. Now, for the Qataris, as we explained, they can't devise more than 1/3 of their will. If they pass away without a will, the will still be distributed or devised pursuant to the Islamic principles and percentages set up in Islamic laws. For what we will focus on is the non-Qataris, because it's a bit complex. Now, even though your nationality, your laws of your nationality will apply, the trick will be between passing away with a will and without a will. And we will go through that, and we'll show you now what happens if somebody passes away without a will, what happens to his inheritance in the country. Now, this is the process. Before talking to the process, Qatar laws doesn't have specific requirements for a will to be enforceable, unlike the US and New York. And Sean here is a qualified lawyer in New York. He feel free to ask him any questions on later on. There's no requirements other than it needs to be in writing and signed. Now, this is what happens basically when somebody passes away. The heirs will have to go back home without a will, passing away without a will. You'll have to go back home, get a decision from the court, deciding and specifying who are the heirs legally, and what is the percentages of each one of them. And you will need a copy of the legislation based on which the court issued the decision. Now, in common law system, this might be a problem because the law is not always written in a legislation. It's made by court decisions. And then all of these documents will need to be attested in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of your home country, and then Qatar Embassy, and then coming back to Qatar in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and then submitted to the court. After that, the court will look into these documents and issue a decision. The decision the court will issue will need to go through enforcement. Before that, if a person owns a property that needs management, the court has the right to appoint an administrator to manage that until they make a decision. So, if the court made a decision, it will move to the enforcement phase, which is a different court. You will have to apply and start through that, enforcing or executing the court decision. And then the distribution of the estate will happen. So the way I explain it, it might be, it's long. It's not might be, it's very long. It's difficult. The family would go through legal complications to start, and probably to be able only to move back the body and bury the body back home. Now, what we tried to do throughout our experience is to build a will that will overcome this long process. What you said, it needs to be in Arabic, that's absolutely true. And what we've done and what we've developed is that we draft the will in a dual language, because eventually a non-local would assuming that they speak English, they would want it to be in English. And to ensure that it will not be subject to interpretation because of the translation, we do it in dual language and ensure it's inconsistent with the English. Then what we do, we attach to the will the piece of legislation that is related to, from the home country, that is related to the will. We get it attested, so it's already there, ready. You don't have to do it again, or your family doesn't have to do it later on. And then in the will, you can appoint the guardian, or administrator, or executor of your will. And the court, as long as the laws of your country allows you to do that. And finally, we get it witnessed by 2 witnesses, in addition to the lawyers signing it, witnessing it, and then basically attested in the Ministry of Justice. Now, the reason it's done in the Ministry of Justice is that the court will not dispute. Nobody can dispute that the execution of a document was illegal. So it cuts back some of the processes that you have to go through. With that, you can apply to the court. The court will have the documents it needs, and based on that, they will issue a decision. Sure.
Does the executor have to be in the country here?
No. Even the guardian. You can appoint anyone, anybody, and to be specific, we've done it in the past, and we usually use their passport numbers and their official information, so there will not be confusion. The only problem that might happen is that if that person changed their name or the information changed, but usually not. Lots of people have their guardians and executors are out of Qatar. Well, basically, they are family members.
So can I just one question?
Sure.
So just from a practical perspective, those 33 nationalities, where you get visa on arrival, how would an executor travel to the country? I mean, can these documents be used to get a visa?
Well, to be frank, I don't have a specific answer to that. We haven't experienced that. But I would say probably yes. To go to the court, he will need to appoint a lawyer. So if he appoints a lawyer, the lawyer would be able to go through that process. He doesn't have to be himself there. And there are many ways to get a visit visa through law firms or business trips. But to be specific, I don't have the answer for that. It's not in the law. It's a process where the Ministry of Interior manage.
Can you give us sample times of with will and without will, the processing, how long it takes?
How long? To be precise, I have no idea, because so far it hasn't been tested what we've done. But from my experience, the court process takes some time. So the court, it operates this way. They have 3 months holiday. They don't work. And so when you have a court case, and
the same months every year, or is it like specific like
they're the same. It's a very rigorous process. The judicial year starts from I think it starts in November or something, and between July, August, and September, and sometimes October, you will find limited cases in the court. So what happens is the process starts. If it comes to close to the judicial recession, then it will be pushed 3 months. So the court system, maybe unlike some jurisdictions, you would find the hearings are happening every 2 weeks, sometimes every 2 months, depending on how the judge or the court is pressured with work. So it might take a judicial year, which is what we call 1 year. It might take less. Without that process, it depends. We had a case where it wasn't a will case. It was a family issue, where the court asked both parties to go back home, get a copy of the laws, and point out the relevant sections where it will allow Catholics to get divorced. The judge, for some reason, said, well, I know Catholics are not allowed to get a divorce, so we cannot give a divorce. And the thing is, family issues, will issues are, for locals, they go to the family court. But for non-locals, including the Arabs, it goes to civil court. So the judge who's looking at it, he's a civil judge. He's not a family trained judge. So the process from going back, and if we go back to this slide, it will show you, you will have to go through this process to be able to get a decision eventually. Because judges are being instructed by the law that you cannot apply Qatar law. So you have to apply their hometown laws. They don't have a copy of that and they will never look for it. So what they will do, they will ask you to go and get a certified copy that this is the law. In some jurisdictions, the laws are not detailed to every issue that you will face. So then you go and get a legal opinion, and then the court will dispute that legal opinion that this is not a judge, this is a lawyer, I don't have to take it. And then they'll ask you to go to a court and get a decision from the court. So all of these complications might prolong the period of the execution of the will. Yes?
What happens, in something like that? Your husband and wife are two different nationalities, or you carry dual citizenship. Does this just add another?
Yeah. Well, exactly. No, actually, what happens in this case is it depends on who passed away. So the laws of the person who passed away will apply. That question will be relevant if it was a custody issue in a divorce, where then you will have a real problem.
Like I'm thinking, if my husband and I were both to die, who gets the kids, and where do I need to have them?
Well, if somebody passes away intestate, meaning without a will, and they are not locals, what happens? And we had a case where a family parents passed away and they had a minor, a kid, and the embassy got involved. The government stepped in, communicated with the embassy and said, please communicate with the family, let them come and pick up the kid. What happens for Qataris, if I pass away, there is an authority for minors. If he's a minor, my wealth will be managed. Based on Islamic law, if he was a boy, my wealth will be managed by the minor authority. Nobody can use anything, do anything without their approval. But still, the custody will be with my wife. Now, going back to this process, and as we've been discussing before, this process, we've developed that because we've done a workshop for another group. And we realized that there are so many issues people are facing we never thought about. And we've developed that process. It has not been tested yet. But what we tried to do is to make sure that we are eliminating whatever process that will prolong the hearings in the court. Now, what are the benefits? Basically, the benefits are to do whatever you want, so long as your laws allow it. I know in New York, if you have a will, they will follow your will, and will be distributed as per that will. So you can appoint somebody to manage your assets. You can appoint a guardian. It will help you basically timely managing the court process, trying to eliminate whatever process will prolong the litigation. And to be honest, sometimes most of the judges are civil trained lawyers. There is a difficulty for them to understand a different concept if they don't know about it. In a common law system, court cases are binding, precedence is binding, unlike a civil system. So sometimes there will be confusion between whatever the system is in your home country and an understanding of a judge. We had an experience with a judge where he basically tried to apply whatever he knows in terms of law and Islamic principles, because we weren't able to give him a piece of legislation that was issued. And in that jurisdiction specifically, they didn't have, the legislation was 3-page law that doesn't explain much. And in that case, it was a very difficult case, and eventually the judge accepted the position, but after a very long time. So this will help you overpass that complication. And again, you can appoint a trustee of your choice. Now, with that, in having a will, it will give you all of these elements. I wouldn't say for sure it will be enforced without any resistance or complication, but the court behavior, they do not get involved in a non-local inheritance issue. They would specifically ask you to provide the pieces of legislation that related to that, and they will follow it. So as much as there are issues around it, as much as they don't prefer to step in and decide on behalf of a person who is not a Qatar, and the local laws does not apply to that.